some ways kind of a little time capsule for a number of recent acquisitions that we've made at the museum, but also a work by one key figure, Harun Farokhi, whose work I think is, again, increasingly important to the way the world is working, how technology is impacting and shaping almost everything we do today. And what you'll see as you move through the exhibition is how a number of technological conditions, from surveillance to racial bias to predictive policing to artificial intelligence, are all threaded through artists' practices as they're understanding their own presence in the world and how that presence is increasingly mediated through these technologies, and how all of these various digital technologies are feeding into the video form itself. I just wanted to include this image of the Martine Sims installation that we're sitting in now. And you'll see that it builds on a range of image sources from footage that she's shot herself, filmed herself, a lot of found footage, but the images are sequenced algorithmically. So it's never the same twice. It's not a conventional loop. And what you begin to see is how her own presence, again, is completely immersed and shaped within a field, a network of electronic images. And that extends throughout the entire show. I mean, every single artist in this exhibition is really thinking about this condition of various networks of technologies and how they are shaping both the images you see on screen, but also the lives shaped by those images.
So this is a work by Trevor Paglen that is on view in the show here right now, titled Behold These Glorious Times from 2017. And it's essentially a hypnotic, fast-paced video that's taking you through or evoking the billions and billions of images that machine learning algorithms are training themselves on to learn and to classify information. And what Paglen does so well is point out, as you're watching all of these images go by, what is the machine learning and what is it, how is it classifying things? Is this an apple that you're looking at, or is this a terrorist? These are the kinds of questions that Paglen is asking to, probe what kinds of biases might be built into artificial intelligence, and how these billions and billions of images that are being trained on for machine learning are potentially leading to unexpected or even undesirable ends. And this is a work that's also on view in this exhibition as part of Harun Farokhi's amazing trilogy titled I, Machine. I'm showing you number 1 from 2001. But Farokhi, again, an incredibly important artist, very influential for many contemporary media artists, was looking at machine vision, similar to what Paglen is doing, saying, how do machines see? What do they see? Because actually what machines see now matters more in many cases than what humans see or what humans interpret. So Farokhi takes us through many kinds of automated cameras that are used for everyday, factories, but also for things like policing or surveillance or military exploits. And this is, again, something that is pointing to the risks of some of these technologies. But he's an artist who's looking at it, bringing his own perspective to that set of technological developments. And just one more work that's in this show that is intensely related to the issues we were just talking about, a kind of immersive large screen that is the artist's take on a predictive policing interface. So you're staring at this, looking like it's a windshield of a car, as if you're driving through a neighborhood in New York City, and there's a digital dashboard, an interface, that's telling you essentially what prediction rates are for crimes occurring at each spot that you're driving through. So it's essentially looking at police systems that are in use right now by different cities, municipalities that are using prior data about certain neighborhoods or locations to predict, oh, is a robbery going to take place? What percentage of that is going to happen on this block? But of course, so many things can go wrong because no crime has actually occurred, and you're driving through these streets with this, again, weight of an algorithmic bias hanging over your head. So it's a really prescient work, and dealing with some of these same questions about technology and artificial intelligence as Paglin and Faraki.
And many of the conditions that Michelle just described are very appropriate to Sandra Mujinga's work as well. And when you see it downstairs, it's presented as a triptych, almost like a Renaissance altar. And there is something almost Renaissance-like as well about this cloak that the subject is wearing. But that cloak, in fact, is part of a tactic to refuse surveillance, to refuse the power of the camera, to criminalize the subject or transform the subject into a target. So there's this sort of dance with this sort of gazing eye of the camera, so that it really asks questions about visibility and invisibility and how much power do we have over these conditions. If any of you have seen the Hito Steyerl exhibition here in Seoul at the MMCA, this is a subject that comes up in a lot of her work. One of those videos is also in the collection at MoMA. It's called How Not to Be Seen, and it's a really important analysis of this question of invisibility. And even green screen technology is one of the basic tenets of video, and how even something like an alternative fact might evolve, how the camera can effectively lie to you. But Sandra's work also, for us, I think, dovetails with the recent protests in Hong Kong, for instance, when a number of protesters were using special masks to, again, refuse the camera, to avoid surveillance by the state. So this is a very elegant and beautiful meditation on this very troubling question, in fact, of a culture steeped in surveillance and racial bias. As Michelle mentioned earlier, our collection of moving images really began in the 1930s, and our commitment to dance and theater, so certainly more conventional forms of performance, also started in the 1930s. MoMA was established in 1929, so it really, the institution is perhaps better known for its commitment to Cubism, but it was always committed to cinema and moving images and experimental media from the very beginning. There were very early exhibitions about the machine and its impact on design, architecture, and art making. So it's deep in our DNA. And the Department of Media and Performance was established in 2006. So it's the youngest of the 6 curatorial departments. And so what's very interesting is, we don't deal with objects by and large. We're dealing with movement, with networks, with code. These are very difficult things, in conventional collecting logic to think about. We have an amazing conservation team that we work with very closely. We think a lot about, again, thanks to Hyundai Card, our Kravis studio space will be opening an exhibition with the artist Eve Laris Cohen in October. And Eve is an artist who was trained in ballet, but now works in very conceptual modes, but is working on a project about a fire at Jacob's Pillow, which is a major dance festival in Massachusetts. And its famous Doris Duke Theater, where many legendary modern dance performances took place, burned to the ground in 2020. So he is creating a work with the remains of that building in our performance space, and really looking at the fragility of performance and what it means for a museum to ask this question. How do you collect a movement? How do you collect a living body? You can't. So this is a very philosophical question that we're asking several times a day and trying to come up with the best answers that we can. I mean, firstly, just to clarify that we're not claiming that video is more or less of a political form than painting. I mean, we're certainly in the United States living in a moment where a video of George Floyd being murdered has revolutionized our society. So if artists are not asking questions about how video functions and how it is literally changing our society, we're not paying attention to those artists and trying to figure out how to articulate that work, then we're not doing our job. And so I think it's, it's just such an urgent question right now, how these images are circulating, how they're captured, how they're capturing us. And, for us, these are just really, really critical questions.
It's just one way, and video is not a coherent medium. It's takes many different forms and occupies many different networks. But it's just one way of artists engaging with what we literally are living through in everyday life. We are surrounded by screens, we're surrounded by online footage, we're surrounded by these formats, and so it's just a way for artists to grapple with what is happening around us and to try and ask questions or make sense of or even change our relationship to these kinds of formats, and then potentially point to new ways of existing or communicating or documenting the world. So I think that's maybe what the possibility is. I'll answer any question.
And thank you so much again to Hyundai Card for making these exhibitions possible.